Kalam podcast is made possible through listeners like you. If you enjoy listening to Kalam, please subscribe to the show in whatever podcast application you're listening to right now, and please give us a rating. It helps other people find out about us. And if you'd like to support the show with a small donation, consider signing up to Kalam Podcast on Patreon for just $3 a month. In addition to supporting the show, you'll gain access to lots of great bonus content. Go to patreon.com and search for Kalam Podcast, or go straight to patreon.com/Kalam Podcast. That's patreon.com/Kalam Podcast. Now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Kalam Digest on Wednesday, the 5th of February, 2025. I'm honored and delighted to invite my co-hosts to the show today, Sam Kal-Samra and Noura Din Faris.
Good morning.
Edgar.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes.
Today's like episode 5 billion and Trump.
22, right?
Yeah.
Episode 345 in today's Trump in diplomacy.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's sad. I mean, the contents are so damning, but it is kind of funny. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Trump's latest statements about his wishes for Jordan and Egypt to repatriate Palestinians, and I think it's not really only Gazans that he's talking about. He's talking about West Bank people as well, in a way, right? But mainly maybe Gazans in the sort of explicit nature of these statements. And essentially, he said that the New York Times had a really, really wild headline the other day where he said Palestinians have no alternative but to leave Gaza.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he hasn't done his homework.
Yeah.
Almost like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Who would have guessed?
Obviously, I don't have to tell you guys, but for our listeners, this is, a long-standing issue. Like the whole Palestinian cause is based on Palestinians not leaving.
Yeah.
If the land of Palestine wasn't as important to Palestinians, then they would have left a long time ago, obviously. I mean, who wants to live in a refugee camp, right?
But don't you think it has to do a little bit with him feeling like a big, strong man after getting the ceasefire deal through? And now he believes almost as if he puts his foot down and he says it in this like really harsh way, then he can basically push through anything. It's almost like a madness.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, I definitely think that he believes that if he just looks Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the president of Egypt, and Abdullah II, the king of Jordan, he just looks them in the eye, like if he does the Larry David thing where he's like, and then maybe they'll just say yes, which I think he does not understand the like feather thin, I don't know what metaphor I'm going for here. Basically, Egypt and Jordan are thin, will be fucking revolutions in their countries. You can't do that. Like Egypt and Jordan, both of those populations are already livid with the fact that their governments have done next to nothing to stop this genocide. So if they go for this,
it will be a revolution in 5 hours.
Exactly.
And they're not even giving them a day, It's like
exactly.
It will just be overthrown.
Exactly, which is why Jordan released well, I think it was according to sources, but obviously, someone leaked it to the Middle East Eye. A very, very big and strong statement saying that if Israel goes through with this and starts forcibly deporting people to Jordan, there will be war.
They will close the border and they will fight back.
Yeah, and so this is. I don't think. I don't think. I never thought that Trump had been like a student of SOAS or something, or some kind of Arabist studying these things, and I don't know if he's like an avid reader of Rashid Khalidi, but I thought maybe he had some grasp on the situation, because saying the things that he's been saying is just like not it's impossible. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting here is it's following the same pattern as with Canada and Mexico, where he, at least in Swedish news, it was reported as a victory for Trump. But what happened was he actually made them do some very, banal concessions, such as like guarding the border better or something, with the army, which sounds great to Trump, but that doesn't really make any serious difference as far as anyone can say. And then he backed down from the embargoes on Canada and Mexico. And as far as I've understood from people who are somewhat more on the inside, what's happening is actually he just makes shit up as he goes along, and he doesn't listen to anyone. He doesn't listen to even, his trusted advisors, if he has such. It's not just that he doesn't listen to actual experts. He doesn't listen to anyone, and he goes around throwing these things, out and just going with it. And then people are like, well, that will actually destroy the car industry. Do you want to do that? Are you sure that you want eggs to be, $55 a packet, and it's like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
And I think, and comparatively speaking, he knows a lot more about Mexico than he does about the Middle East. So, I mean, this isn't really surprising in that sense. But for us, people who know anything about the Middle East, it's of course it's horrifying, because it will, as Hamas said, it will ignite the region if he tries to go through with this. But it's just, I mean, I think what he thinks that he's up against Palestinians and terrorists who do not want to do what he wants them to do, right? And that he has the best ally in Israel. What he doesn't realize is that, as you said, Edgar, that he is up against every single country, every single nation in the Middle East. They are all in agreement on this is a really, really bad idea, except for Israel, of course. And I mean, it doesn't matter how much they're allied to him. They will, for their own good, they cannot do this. They cannot go through this. I mean, as you said, partly because the political ramifications of, accepting the destruction of the Palestinian people, will not work out for Sisi or for Jordan. But more important than that, I mean, it's also they don't want the Palestinians. The Jordanians are very, very clear on this. They've already had like one king murdered by a Palestinian, assassinator for letting down the Palestinians. And Egypt, of course, has the same experience. I mean, where they know what happened in Lebanon. They are afraid that they will destabilize their entire country. And they've been extremely hostile to Hamas for a long time, because they understand Hamas to be kind of the, part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which it is kind of. But so I mean, to Sisi, whose main plank of any policy he is doing is like destroy the Muslim Brotherhood. He will never let like 2.5 million people, out of whom at least half are sympathetic to the Muslim Brotherhood, and where like basically every guy knows how to shoot a gun, into Egypt. It will not happen. They will not do that.
Yeah.
They might even accept, if he would deport them all to Madagascar, he would be fine with that. But they will not let them into Egypt and Jordan, period. It will never happen, for their own very cynical, personal, or like own reasons. Not because they care shit about the Palestinians, and not even because they're worried about the opinion on Palestine, which they are. But I mean, it's just like they will not let that happen. And that's the thing that Trump doesn't understand. I mean, he's not up against people who he can force to do. I mean, it's like, this is suicidal for the people he's trying to force, and they are his allies, yes, but they will also prioritize their own survival before him. And of course, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been extremely clear that this is not on the table. At the same time as Netanyahu is standing on TV saying, we are very close to like a friendship agreement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And sure, I'm convinced that Saudi Arabia would very much want that. They would want normalization, and they would want the Palestinian question to disappear. But they also know that it can't disappear on these terms. It has to disappear on some kind of, they kind of had some kind of Bantustan in the West Bank, and we kind of forget about them. That would be great for Saudi Arabia, and they wouldn't give a shit about Palestinians' actual lives and plight. But they cannot accept like, this is a great deal we have. We just kill them all. Yeah. Saudi Arabia cannot say yes to that, for tactical or strategical reasons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, isn't this just the thing of Trump and his cohort just kind of like tossing things at the wall to see what's anyway? But also the point about Egypt is also, I mean, one thing is like letting Palestinians into the fabric of Egyptian society and risking to become a new Lebanon. But even if they did accept people and without confronting Israel, inevitably, if I mean their logic is that if Hamas comes into Sinai, then they will build bases there and they'll strengthen the already ongoing Islamist insurgency that is in northern Sinai, and they'll send rockets into Israel from there, which will prompt inevitably retaliation on Egyptian soil, which will inevitably toss Egypt into a war with Israel.
Yeah. I mean, I think the important thing here is like we have to understand that the West Bank and the Gaza Strip is, under the circumstances, very important things to Egypt and Jordan as well as places to keep the Palestinians. This is horrible, but I mean, it's true. It's not just Israel who wants to keep them, you know, permanently sequestered in, you know, weird outdoors concentration camps. The Egyptians and the Jordanians want that as well. I mean, Jordan, of course, being somewhat less aggressively, let's say, pro-Israeli, or I would say that, I mean, these guys, they're also kind of connected culturally much more directly to the West Bank.
Oh yeah, the king's wife is Palestinian. The majority of people in Jordan are Palestinian. It's
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something for the pod's listener, perhaps. I mean, the fact that actually the majority of the Jordanian population is refugee Palestinians from the West Bank. That's a good piece of information, yeah. But I mean, I think, so I mean, we have to see, I mean, this is what Trump doesn't get. He's not trying to solve the problem for Israel, which is, I mean, this is a solution. The way that it's working until now is quote unquote solution for both sides, which both sides can agree on. You can't just like shift that solution to something else, which is great for one side and horrible to the other side. Then you have, you know, you're not balancing the forces here, and the forces are the Palestinians and the Israelis, but the Arab world, the Arab states, who do not really give a shit about Palestinians, at least their governments, of course. I mean, the people do, but you can't shift that balance. You know, you have allies on both sides. You need them all to carry out any kind of functioning policy in the Middle East, and I don't think he gets that. I think he really does not understand or know that.
Yeah, Nora, you've been living in Amman for the better part of last year, I think, or last fall.
Yeah,
what have you been seeing, like reactions to this?
Well, obviously, I also agree that neither Egypt or Jordan would agree to this. Also, because you already have people in Jordan that are so extremely exhausted by the situation happening so close to their country, and this peace agreement that the country has had with Israel has always been something that a lot of people are dissatisfied with. At the same time, it's a good deal because it means that Jordan is a peaceful country in a region that is really unstable. But in terms of we've had Trump for like 2 weeks as president, and I feel like what he's doing is that he just keeps on throwing up these huge headlines about I'm going to change this is going away, this is happening, and it becomes this huge deal. But if we actually look at it, the things that he has been saying, so he was going to ban TikTok, and then there was this thing with Mexico and Canada. It's all been kind of retracted into a smaller idea of what he originally stated. And I believe that I'm hoping that this is kind of the same way, where it is a very, very big statement. It will make the headlines, but in the end, it will not actually become as big. Because I think that either he is manic, because I'm seeing some type of like
he's not sane. He's not well.
No, he's not. But I'm seeing some similarities between him and Kanye West, where it's just men with a bunch of money that are just saying these crazy things. It's like they're living it's crazy.
That's an excellent comparison.
But maybe weren't they friends a couple of years ago? They're besties. Yeah, it rubs off.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's having like a manic episode, Trump, and is just performing all of these like, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do that. But then realistically, obviously, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think, like the knot that is, I mean, of course, this conflict is not complicated in the sense that apartheid is not complicated. That's wrong. Colonialism is wrong. All these things, but there still are like knots to this conflict because of positions that different parties have taken, and to untie them is a challenge. I think that Biden could have gotten the ceasefire earlier, obviously, But what we're seeing now is like a lot of people who are like, well, look at Trump. Like we don't like Trump, but at least he got us the ceasefire.
Mm.
What we're seeing now is like well, if it isn't the consequences of the concessions that I made to Netanyahu to get this ceasefire.
Yeah.
So I think that like this is like what you're saying, Nora, about like how this is it's like a manic episode, and he's just like, I think it's also a negotiating tactic. I mean, that's what you're kind of saying. Like with Mexico, it's like he puts in the tariffs, and then he has a phone call and he withdraws them.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't want a tariff with Mexico. But in this case, I don't know. I think like he needs Mexico in a way that he does not need Palestinians.
No.
He
He
needs
needs Saudi Arabia and he needs Egypt.
he needs
he does.
the Arab world, but I think that they
I
need.
don't think he knows that he needs them, but he does.
Yeah, but
Someone will tell him.
I think like so there is obviously China to trade with, but I think that the Arab world needs him a whole lot too. I mean, Mexico is very quick to make that call, and that the Mexican president, shout out to her, friend of the show, Jewish socialist woman, incredible.
Jewish Trotskyist president of Mexico. That's
no friend of
it's
Trump,
see that
right?
coming. Someone wrote that. I thought it was kind of funny on Twitter. Like, I trust in the Castro's son and Trotsky's granddaughter.
Yeah,
All these
exactly.
speculations that
that there was I see. Well, look, she's obviously no friend of Trump, but she needs Trump a whole lot. I mean, the U.S. is still the big hegemon in the world, so
of course.
I don't know. Like, yeah, we'll have to see. But I think that people who believed truly that Trump was the peace candidate, and then they felt like he was like vindicated. They were vindicated in him achieving the ceasefire. Just look at Jenin. I mean, we reported on this last week, but 30 houses, I think, have been completely destroyed. I mean, it's like a ghost city, at least Jenin refugee camp, as well as Tulkarem. There are no, I mean, they're leveling these places to the ground. They're doing like Gaza. And that's what Breaking the Silence, for example, and other Israeli human rights organizations are saying that this is we're seeing a Gazification of the West Bank.
Yeah.
So if you're just moving the war to the West Bank, I don't see how that's so much better. And yeah, I don't know. They're talking about reconstruction of Gaza. And in order to reconstruct, they're like, I think Steve Witkoff, the Middle Eastern envoy, who managed to get the ceasefire by like pulling Netanyahu's ear like this. Like he's no obviously friend of Palestinians, and that I think that the angle that they're going for is like, look, we need to like just clearing the rubble is going to take 3 to 5 years. And to do that, we can't have Palestinians there because like it'll be dangerous for them. It's for your security. They talk about dictators. What do you have?
There's like eerily similar to weird, I mean, kind of failed dictators of the Middle East.
Yeah,
it's like the kind of behavior is so similar. It's like this is like it's not like Sisi is a copy of Trump. It's like Trump is a copy of Sisi.
Yeah. No, I think the similarities are uncanny just because we follow these dictators so much, but it's just the universal thug routine. I mean,
yeah.
Salazar.
You're used to the U.S. having competent, if horrible presidents.
Yeah,
and especially having competent, if horrible, administrations. Even Trump the younger, he was. He wasn't particularly intelligent, perhaps, but I mean, he had an administration which was very well aware what it was doing, and it had
Trump the younger. Who are you talking about?
Bush the younger.
Bush the younger.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, I also heard Trump the younger.
Oh, sorry, maybe I missed.
Oh my God, do you know something?
Is there a Trump the younger? I mean, there is, but I mean, saying like what's happening with Trump, and to some extent, actually, with Biden, the demented Biden, the Biden who can't make decisions, can't even speak on TV. It's like, oh, you have Bouteflika, and then you change him for Sisi. It's like it's not the kind of administrations or the kind of regimes that you expect from the hegemon of the world. And I think I hear you, Edgar. I think you're right with the thing with the Arab world needs the US a lot, but this is also there's a number of Arab countries that have staked everything on, the US will just be the hegemon. We'll have to just
Yeah.
deal with that. That's what happened with Egypt from Sadat onwards, and that's what's been the thing with Saudi Arabia since 1945, basically.
Mm.
And I think both of those countries will be turning towards China, not like right out and just, breaking off relations with the US, but they will realize, okay, so this is the least secure thing we can depend on right now. I mean, this kind of state, this kind of regime, we can't deal with them. Not seriously, not over time. And I mean, we've already seen that with the closing. I mean, the relationships getting so much better between Iran and Saudi Arabia, something I didn't think would happen in my lifetime almost,
Yeah.
That seemed like a much more entrenched conflict than even the Israeli-Palestinian one. But now they're like, yeah, okay, we have different interests, but we can talk with each other. And I think this is what's going to happen. The region is going to have to turn away from depending on the US. And that's what we talked about before with like Biden fucking up the entire like diplomatic soft power legacy of the US in the region. Trump made a comeback, of course, with the ceasefire, but I think if he keeps pushing this thing instead of like realizing that he has to he has to push both sides or all sides, there's more than two, I guess, to make concessions and to kind of just accept the power broker role of the US to like, I mean, that's what I thought that he was at least partially doing with the ceasefire, reminding Israel that it's nothing without the US, so you have to listen to us, and then we can give you whatever we want because we want to give you that, but we will not accept being kind of pushed into destroying all our other relationships in the region. But if he's back to this just like randomly fucking shit up, it will turn the entire region away from the US because these dictators, they don't want anything besides stability and being left in peace to rule their own populations. They don't care about anything apart from that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing going into the head of Trump, but I don't see a way out of this if he doesn't really get behind his words and actually work to violently deport 1.5 million people from Gaza. Otherwise I don't see how. I mean, it's not going to happen. Obviously, it's not going to happen.
I mean, that's, I think, the problem also. We're talking about this thing with Egypt and Jordan. In most of these things, as you said, Nora, I mean, I think you're very right on that. He thinks he can get concessions by playing, doing the crazy act, I can do whatever I want. And then people give him concessions. I think that what he got from Mexico and Canada was a lot less than what he tried to make out that he got. But anyway, he came out of it looking strong. But in this situation, I mean, Egypt will not take 100,000 Palestinians. They will not take, 50,000 Palestinians. Jordan will take 0 Palestinians. I mean, it's not like he's going to be able to give Israel, let's say, this or that in, to some extent, and then, get them to back off a little bit. They will not do that. They will not accept taking Palestinians in en masse, even if it's not 2.5 million, which is, obviously impossible for many reasons. And I mean, then the only thing that remains, as I said, the only thing remains is like deport them to Madagascar or something. I mean, that's the thing he could do. I mean, I don't think if he actually could do it. I mean, but these countries will not take in more than, a couple of thousand injured.
They keep on sending people back as well, like Egypt and Jordan. They treat them and then they send them right back to the strip.
And Israel is saying like, we will not take them. And then they have to take them eventually, So I mean, it's not a situation. I think he thinks it is, but it's not a situation where he can manage in this way. He can't rule this in this way. But I just have to say my favorite quote or my favorite thing came out of this press conference or whatever it was, where Trump says he says to Iran, "We will be great friends as long as you do whatever I want," etc., etc. But then he also ends. He kind of he calls off on this quote or this thing where he says, I've given my advisors instructions for Iran to be obliterated if I'm assassinated.
He sounds like
it's like mutually assured destruction with nuclears, but on the one side it's like, if you kill me, kill all of you. It's not like if you attack us, we will attack you.
It sounds like a whistleblower, like I have instructed for these documents to be released about you.
Exactly.
Hair on my head is injured.
Exactly. I mean, it's exactly. It's like from a really shitty like spy novel.
Yeah.
Oh, we put these documents in a safe where no one knows where they are, but there's like a secret code that will be released.
Yeah.
And the email
Don't
that we
see
can send
this
to
from powerful men. Seriously, this is the scariest thing. Powerful men are crazy.
I mean, this is something else. I mean, as I always say, I mean, the thing freaks me out the most about Trump is that he is a teetotaler. He doesn't even drink. He doesn't do drugs. He's like 100% sober doing all this. Supposedly. I mean, this is what people say. It's like, what is wrong with his... I mean, if he was just drunk on the job, it would make some kind of sense, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess that's it with Trump. We'll just have to work going forward.
We should...
So I think
yeah,
there's one last thing that I want to mention about Gaza is like we see, I think it was yesterday that I saw the death toll being raised to 60,000. They're trying to count, I mean, they're finding mass graves and, dead bodies when they're clearing up the rubble. People who've been, disappeared. So I think we need to, apart from the whole question of like what will happen in the long run, etc., we have to keep our eye on the fact of the genocide because, there's numbers coming in and more information being released as people return to the north. Which I think is just horrifying. It's kind of ended up in the shadow of this kind of what's, the day after what's going to happen now. We did the same thing today on this podcast, of course, but it's like there's still so many people dead and the death toll will keep rising as they, as people return and clear up.
There's also been so many videos circulating of people clearing up their old houses. And it's, how one wall is completely gone and you can see straight into the next building. And Gazans are still incredibly proud of their homes. So they keep on saying, like, we will rebuild. And every time I see one of those videos, somebody, sweeping up this rubble and dirt and going over their old belongings that have just been reduced to nothing. I cannot help but think back to the episode that Edgar and I we recorded sometime in fall that was about asbestos, which whenever we see these people sweeping up rubble, asbestos is just circulating in the air. They are inhaling it. I would actually recommend anybody that hasn't listened to that episode to do it because I think that we will be seeing the ramifications of that for the coming years. But at the same time as there is resilience and there is this, a really strong mentality of we are not going, this is our homes and we will rebuild and we will make everything fine again. I really am super concerned about what is going to happen to the people that have been breathing these materials in.
Yeah. I mean, that's also what Lancet, when they ended up with this very, very high death toll, they also counted things such as diseases coming from, the effects of, which I think, this is also what we have to count. People the after effects will be horrible as well.
Yeah. We'll have to follow all these developments and do not forget that Gaza is still a place that where human beings live, But we will be continuing to follow these developments and later this week we'll be releasing an episode on the sort of ordinary Kalam podcast feed with a woman who's been in and out of Assad's prisons. So look forward to that. But for now, thank you, Samuel Konsabra and Noura Eddin Faris.
Thank you, Edgar Mannheimer.
Edgar Mannheimer.
Mannheimer. I say it in Swedish. Edgar Mannheimer.
Samuel Konsabra. Noura Eddin Faris. Alla bye.